ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only Xcn crypto. Now, look, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a couple days since we covered this coin, but I must say that the monthly close is not the best. All right, it is not the best. Now, it is not the worst necessarily per se, but it does delay the process practically, right? It does delay the process. So, a few things that I just want to mark up right away. We can see, ladies and gentlemen, that we had the opportunity to practically create a higher high in terms of candles, right? When we go look at something like this, we had the opportunity to really shift and confirm momentum, uh, but we didn't, right? We have these lows over here of this black candle down here. We have these highs of this blue candle. And at one point, right, we had a higher high. Like the way it was looking good. And, we had these lows over here too, right? We had these lows over here too. So it could have been a staircase towards the upside, and it would have been confirmation, massive confirmation that we are just in an uptrend and that we are going to go consistently higher and higher, right? But we didn't get that, right? We never got this higher high, right? And as of right now, we even got technically a lower low than the month of June. Now, here's the thing, right? Technically, technically we're still in line and we are, looking for reversals because we can even close as low as practically, let's just say 1 cent, and it's still technically going to be a higher low over here than this area over here. So it would still be possibly bullish. Okay. That is just the reality. Now, something that I noticed that could be a possible play is that we are kind of in a very similar scenario to what happened to Xcn back in 2024, where, right, we had a pump, we had a sell off, and then just for a couple months, practically, we were just having very, very slow momentum to the downside and kind of sideways, right? Like a mix of both, right? And that could be happening again, where we are just going to be going possibly diagonally for a little bit more before we see a huge burst to the upside. Because, like I said, we didn't confirm and we didn't complete the step we needed to. Okay. Now we just stalled things out. So, technically it could still happen this month, right? Technically, it could still happen, right? When we look at this, we have this low over here, and we could have this higher low over here played out from the July candle, and then August can still be a pump. Okay. Look, we expected some type of sell off in general because, ladies and gentlemen, Bitcoin has been tanking. And that should be no surprise if you are in the community or if you have been watching the videos that have been explaining, practically what I expect for Bitcoin to be doing. We can see that there's a lot of imbalance here for Bitcoin, right? And there was also a huge gap. There was a huge gap at around 114,000, right? And we can see it finally got filled up. It finally got filled. And we are also technically retesting on very, very key levels, right? We're retesting at key levels. So, we this is important, right? This is very, very important. And like I said, we could even potentially go down to 110K, which obviously would cause something like XCN to drop. But ultimately, I'm still bullish on the higher time frame. I'm still bullish with a coin like Xcn. And yes, I still believe there's going to be an altcoin season. Now, look, everyone jumped the gun right away, right? We had Bitcoin dominance sell off, and people are saying, this is it, this is it, this is it. But, ladies and gentlemen, right, we talked about this that, just because you have a nice sell off doesn't mean anything because we could just be simply looking to retest off this huge structure just the same way we did back in December, right? To continue to go up higher because the exact same thing practically played out where we sold off pretty heavy, right? We go here on the weekly, we can see we sold off pretty heavy for 3 weeks and then we started to recover. And all that happened was a big retest, a very fundamental retest happening, right? Just simple support, like support and resistance, simple retest. And you know what? As of right now, it is on the cards to continue to go up higher and higher up to the 70%, like we originally said already over a year ago, which is our main expectation, right? So we didn't get the confirmation, ladies and gentlemen. Technically speaking, we could still go up to something like 64.5% and then start dropping off, but it is very, very unlikely. So, even though, I'm still optimistic about something like Xcn, and I do know it's going to be going up, and I do believe right now we're in a fake out stage, it doesn't mean there's going to be automatic altcoin season. It doesn't mean right now, within the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks, we're going to be getting the peak of peak gains where we go up 100% a day, right? But, ladies and gentlemen, don't be sad. There's still a lot of good to be had. Also, if we do close above this weekly candle right over here, boom, right? Technically, it is still on the cards for us to squeeze up very, very soon. Why? Well, because when we go and look at the weekly candle closes, we could take the top over here of this blue one, right? Then we have a lower one, boom, and we have these lows over here, right? We have a low over here, boom. We have a higher low on this black candle, and then it's going to be practically like this, right? This week is going to decide, yes, do we have a lot of time left? No, because it's a Saturday and we only have Sunday left. But if we technically close even like this, or just even 1% higher, it is going to be considered as a higher low, which means, we still have it a little bit where we could still technically squeeze and make the final decision. Next week might be the final decision. 2 weeks might be the final decision. So, don't be pessimistic. Do not lose hope right away, because technically the markets still haven't decided, right? They're getting squeezed from both angles. Kind of like the way Bitcoin did in recent times. And then when it literally couldn't get squished anymore, it had to make a choice, right? We can see, boom, the daily candle closes, right? We had these bottoms over here. We had this bottom, we had this bottom, we had this top, and then Bitcoin was getting squished and then exploded to the downside. Okay. And same thing happened before when Bitcoin needed to expand, right? We had this top over here, this top, this bottom, this bottom, this bottom, this bottom, this top, and it literally waited until it couldn't anymore, and it just exploded. Like, it just exploded. So Xcn is in a very similar position, and I wouldn't be pessimistic about it, okay? When we go and look at something like the market cap for our beloved altcoins, we can see we also have a high, a lower high, and we are currently selling off. But ladies and gentlemen, every time we had something like this, you have to realize, right? The last time we had it, we went diagonally, we went up. So if we go diagonally again, we're just going to have a higher rally. Overall, you can see altcoins are generally in accumulation zone, right? In accumulation territory. We can see, boom, a simple trend like this, right? We are in this zone, but once we fly out of this zone, the next pit stop is practically all-time highs. After that, we most likely will get a little bit of a sell-off, and then the big official rally will be here. So, this is still the time to be getting in your coins very cheap, right? This is still the time to be accumulating Xcn if you're super high on this project, and if you want to continuously put in the money. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, that is ultimately it. Do not get discouraged. I hope you guys did enjoy. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.